Hello. Hello and welcome to whatever this is. I'm John Reardon. This is my little brother Dylan. One of two things has happened. Either we reached $4,500 in our charity stream, in which case this was a stretch goal and thank you and all that good stuff, or we didn't, but we already filmed this in advance and you're a Patreon supporter and so you get it anyway. Dylan, you are a music major?
Well, that's what they say, but they're wrong. I never graduated.
All right. So Dylan is a music and but you did like music theory.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of practical experience doing music for stuff. You've done you're in a band. Mm-hmm. You just released your debut album.
Some night you will hear me crowing.
And but you've also done scores for movies,
mm-hmm.
web series,
mm-hmm.
TV shows.
One TV show. And you've worked on scores for video games, but none of the games have ever come out. Correct.
So I don't know if that counts.
We can count it.
But it's still like kind of in your resume.
Yeah. Composing and analysis. Composing, music composition, and theoretical analysis of music are my wheelhouse.
So we're going to take a look at some video game music, and rather than just saying like, hey, this song is cool, because, and we can all do that, we can all appreciate that, Dylan has the unique position to be able to tell us why that stuff is cool, and hopefully give us some more insight into it, so we can learn some things, and all that good stuff. So you've brought some music.
I have.
And we're going to start with that, but I'm also just going to play some random music for Dylan that he may not have heard before, and we'll see what he thinks about that. So what did you bring to the table, to the piano?
I brought 3 songs with this mentality. As a kid, before I really knew anything that went into the composition of music, I was always pretty interested by why things sounded a certain way. Like when I'm in a water level, why does it sound like a water level? Like what about that music is distinct from the desert level? Or when you're fighting the final boss, why does that sound like a boss song as opposed to exploration music? Clearly the songs are written differently, but what goes into that to make that happen? So the 3 songs I chose are the water music from the first Mario, the gliding music from Pilot Wing 64 when you're on your hang glider, and the final Ganon battle from Ocarina of Time. These are 3 pieces of music that I think are very well written and express quite exceptionally their scene that they fit into.
Cool.
So let's start with the Mario water music, something we're all familiar with. I'll just play it really quick. Nice. So I want to explore a few avenues of this one, namely tempo/rhythm, the melody, the harmony, or that is the chord progression, and also this feeling of tension and release that this song does a really good job of using. So the first thing that pops out into my mind of why does this sound like water music as opposed to anything else from a music theory standpoint is the fact that it's a waltz. It's in 3/4 time, chit chit, chit chit, like that. And the first thing that we kind of culturally think of when we hear a waltz is people dancing, right?
Right.
It's graceful. They're kind of working against gravity, but simultaneously with gravity,
Swaying.
swaying to do their thing. And when you're underwater, of course, there's the weightlessness, there's the using your surroundings to your advantage kind of a feel. So I think the waltz really intuitively, musically, is good for that. And it's
Just puts you in that headspace.
Yeah.
Subconsciously.
Subconsciously, it's like, all right, we're graceful, we're kind of dancing, we're bouncing, we're moving kind of against gravity. And it's a moderate tempo. It's not too slow, it's not too fast. It doesn't slow down the pace of the gameplay, but there's not a lot of intensity or fear.
It's calmer than like the regular Mario song.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like the Mario theme.
Yeah. I think probably the most powerful thing about this piece of music that makes it sound like underwater music is the way that the melody and the chord structure is shaped. So let's start with the melody. To just play the melody for you on its own with no chords. It's really, really simple, and it sounds kind of dull without the chords under it. So it's like this. So we can just leave it there. The first thing that you hear happen, two notes that are a half step apart. And this is kind of a theme for this whole song, both in the melody and in the chord progression. It does a lot of what you call half steps, or uses a lot of chromaticism. And all that chromaticism refers to is, okay, you have a note, let's say C, and you just go, whether you're going up or down, you're just going to the very next note. So if we want to go up to C sharp, just hit the very next note. And if you go all the way up, it's just a lot of notes butted up right next to each other, as opposed to a whole step where it's you have your note, okay, skip this note, there's your next note, skip this note, there's your next note, skip this note, there's your next note. So the chromaticism can do something really interesting, which is it can make you feel like you don't quite know what's going to happen next. It doesn't always strongly set up a direction or a momentum.
You can kind of go anywhere from wherever you are. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So, and especially the melody starts with such a small movement. It's the smallest movement you can do on the piano, and then it does a little run. All chromatic. Mm-hmm. And right there is your first whole step in the whole melody, and the rest of it so far has been chromatic, and then again. And then it does kind of big jumps there. And the next section of the song, we'll get into the harmony part of it, because that's the more interesting part. The melody pretty much stays put. So this idea of chromaticism helps it feel like it can go anywhere. Like with the waltz, it adds to a weightlessness. Mm-hmm. It's not strongly pointing, like I said, in one direction or the other, or taking you to a home base. So the chords help with that, though. So let's move on to the chords. It's in the key of C, so our first chord is a C chord. And then it goes down to, well, I'll just play the chords first. So what the chords in this song help do is give the melody a little bit of grounding. The melody is floating on top, but the chords always make it feel like you're kind of juggling something, you know, like it's holding the thing together. It's not quite falling apart, but it always sounds like it might. And there's nothing much to the first part of the chord progression. It's going from a C to a G augmented, which means here's your regular G chord. Mm-hmm. You just raise the top note. And then it makes you really strongly want to go back home to that C chord. And that's the same thing as what's going on in the melody. And then it does kind of the same motion, but just in the key of G, a fourth down, and then it goes back up to C. The really crazy part about the harmony in this song is what it does during like the B section. You then start to have a lot of chromatic movement like we were hearing in the melody, but now in the chord progression. And so your bass line goes all half steps. And so what you get, and then you add like harmony on top of that, adding the thirds. Also walking down chromatically, except for there it stays put. So there's lots of movement that continually makes you feel like you're falling, but then it kind of pushes you back up. Like, you know, it goes down here, but then, whoa, now we're in a new key. Now we're in D minor, and we're falling like this, and it sounds very sad briefly, but then this D minor chord takes us right back to G, which takes us right back to C, and then we're home again.
So,
and then a cute little ending.
So the music is playing exactly like you play the level.
Yes.
Because you're, the way water levels work in Mario, you're sinking, you hit A,
and then bloop, bloop, you gotta go back up.
Down, and
yep, that's
and
exactly
so the music
how
is just
it feels.
doing the exact same thing as the player is doing.
Absolutely.
That's neat.
It super is neat. We'll be right back.
All right. So next you have probably, I guess this is probably the most obscure
Probably.
piece, and it's not
Unless
not
you're
crazy
Dan
obscure.
Hess.
Does anybody know what it is yet? Just from that. This is Pilot Wings.
Yeah. Pilot Wings 64.
Right. A game that we both played a lot of, and it has a lot of baby making music in it. That's like kind of, if you had to describe the soundtrack, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to talk about one song in particular, which is the hang glider theme, which is the music when you're hang gliding. It's the theme.
For hang gliding.
Hang gliding in Pilot Wings
64. This one, there's probably less to talk about as far as just how the song itself is written, as with the Mario Water music. This kind of has to do more with visually what the music is doing in a weird way.
Okay.
And you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
So to start with the basics, I think the big thing that stands out to me is just the timbre of the instruments. So you have your flute is your lead instrument, which is a wind instrument. You're up in the sky, and your kind of synth pad sound holding the chords is a very kind of wispy, dry, airy, just kind of sounds like breathing. And then under it, you just have a pretty cool, almost sort of tropical drum beat, keeping things going. This is the one I've practiced the least. I better start over. Play it from the game. All right, so let's pretend I did a successful playthrough.
Right. Okay.
And action.
I'm definitely not going to put that moment in, for sure.
Oh.
You can feel really
Usually you
safe.
say that when you are gonna... I gotta go. So aside from instrumental textures, the first thing that jumps out to me in this is the mode of the song. And a mode is very similar to a musical scale. So everyone can recognize the sound of a major scale, you know? Or a minor scale. And modes are like scales. We don't call them scales. I honestly am not quite sure why. But they're like scales in that it's just an assortment of notes in between the octave. Mm-hmm. that beautiful octave. The mode that the Pilot Wings gliding song uses is called the Mixolydian mode, which if we have our major scale and we're in the key of E major for this song, the only difference with the Mixolydian mode is the second to last note. It becomes that, as opposed to that. And so when you hear the chords going, you know, as opposed to, doesn't sound nearly as satisfying, does it? But you just take that little note, make it go down one, boom, Mixolydian, sounds great. What's kind of cool about what this chord progression does is it always keeps the same note in the bass, and we call that a pedal tone, which comes from when you play a pipe organ and you use pedals for the bass note. I stomped really
physically stomped on the floor.
Bang. When you play a pipe organ, you use pedals to hold your bass note, and sometimes a technique that organists would do is they would do all sorts of crazy stuff up on the keyboard, but keep their foot just playing it on that one note. And it kind of has a cool, like, building tension, really majestic sound. And so this song does that up until a very strategic point, which makes it really satisfying. So it has this pedal tone. It's rotating between 3 chords, but always just with that E in the bass. And the melody kind of does a similar thing. It'll always come back to this note for that first little melody it does. So you get this sense of like you're here, ba 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 ba. It's a very visual thing, which to me looks like hang gliding, like when you're catching the wind and then falling a little bit and catching the wind. It's kind of similar to the underwater level thing a little bit. There's no ground beneath your feet. Another thing that's cool about this melody is that as the phrases go on, the melody keeps ascending gradually. So we have that first phrase, but then it goes, now we're higher, now we're highest. And so you get this sense of you just keep getting new drafts of things, just kind of setting you up. Yeah, all the while this thing is just taken away in the background.
Yeah.
So this kind of sounds like the ground beneath your feet. It'll never change. And it doesn't ever change for the whole song, I don't think. So then it does a little breakdown that I don't really know how to play.
Insert breakdown.
And then when it comes back, it reiterates that melody that we've been hearing, but now all of a sudden we're not doing a pedal tone in the left hand, we're going full on. And then it's really satisfying to hear those chords actually changing under that melody. And it kind of colors the melody in a different way. Makes it sound a little more driving and forward momentum and intentional. So to me it feels like, all right, we're kind of getting the hang of hang gliding. And now, just after a couple minutes of hearing that, we're to the point where we feel like we're the master of hang gliding. Because after 2 minutes of Pilot Wings, you probably are the master of hang gliding. Yeah, the final song I picked is the final battle with Ganon from Ocarina of Time. I knew I wanted to pick a boss battle song because we all know that feeling when we're fighting a boss, whether it be the final boss or not, but like our palms are sweaty and we're just freaking like freaked out. And this one is the one that probably does that best for me, which is interesting because even in Ocarina of Time, it's not the most intense boss battle song. There's lots more. There are a lot more like fluid and frightening and like
Much more
aggressive. Percussion heavy, and it's
Yeah.
like Planet of the Apes with the pianos
Yeah.
and stuff. But this one is cool for a few reasons, and I'll tell you why. One interesting fact about this song is that it uses only 2 chords, which is F major and E major.
It already sounds intimidating.
Yeah. If you want to sound like a Zelda song, you make it that chord as opposed to that chord. And occasionally that chord. When I was thinking about this song today, I was thinking about this idea that the song always suggests a minor key, but always lands on a major chord. And I'm like, what is it that sounds minor? And I think I found the answer. The song, even though it's revolving from an F to an E, it's in the key of A minor, even though you never hear an A minor. Because the key signature where F and E major exist is A minor.
Okay.
So you hear those 2 chords, and you want to go there. That's like kind of where your ear is taking you.
Yeah.
But when you just use those 2 chords, it just becomes like this soupy loop of like, this song is in a minor key, but there's not a single minor chord. And it's super
It
interesting.
never quite goes to where you want it to go.
Yeah. Because you even want to hear that kind of.
That once you do that, it totally takes away the scariness of it.
Yeah. But if you
It
land
becomes
on.
really calm when you do that.
Yeah, if you land on there, it's like, jeez. And the
Yeah.
drums going in the background. So the drums are the frantic part of that song that keeps your energy moving. And so then I'm thinking, why is a song with 2 chords that are both major chords so much more like frightening of a boss battle than
Because-
the scary songs?
Because minor is the sad notes for those listening at home.
Minor is the sad notes.
Yeah.
And I think this realization that I came to is that the just for the final battle of this game, they're not focused on. And when I say they, I mean Koji Kondo. Koji is not focused on making you feel like you're not suited for this fight, because that's kind of every other mood implied from a boss battle is like, just like trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
But this one suddenly puts you, like, there's fast drums, but just these beautiful chords over it, and there's choir and strings and stuff. And so it makes you feel like you can do it. The game all of a sudden turns from you're in trouble the whole time to you've gotten this far. This is an equal force. Like you're fighting the scariest thing you've ever fought, but you can do it. And the music is right there behind you saying, like, this is no more you're about to die, and suddenly it's just Battle of the Titans. And I think that's what's so powerful. And so for me as a player, then that even adds a little bit more, like, I'm in trouble. Like, I better get this right. I'm gonna do this. Like, it feels like there's something riding on it that's way more powerful. I think it's great because it takes a cinematic approach. Kind of like the music takes a step out of the situation and says what cosmically is going on here. It's the ultimate showdown between good and evil, and who's gonna win. And so I think the music does a great job, uniquely in this boss battle, of communicating more of like that meta.
Yeah, like
truth.
it's not trying to scare you. It's on your side,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
kind of takes your side in it.
absolutely. Honestly, I think that's all I have to say about that song.
Okay.
That's like my favorite song from
It's
Ocarina of
a
Time.
cool. I remember the Ocarina of Time remix album. That was cool because it actually had, I don't know if it was a real choir, but it was not an N64 choir. You know what I mean? So it's not. Yeah.
They're like singing with a pillow in their throat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you
I
kind
was
of
gonna
just
say in your mouth, but you would have had to take that out.
just put that in. This is where the fun begins. Now I'm gonna have Dylan play a few games, listen to some music, and just kind of give his thoughts on some things. Because the thing about you is that a lot of your gaming music is like pre 2001.
Right. Like all the stuff that I just picked.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you some newer stuff that I think is cool, and see what you think of it. We'll be right back. So what do you know about Shovel Knight, Dylan?
Nothing.
Okay.
I've heard the name, and I know that it's a game that some people enjoy.
Okay. So we're gonna look at this from a musical perspective.
So here's my first impressions of the title screen music.
Okay.
I like it a lot. And I think that it's imitating, well, obviously it's imitating an 80s sound. And I just, since this title screen has come up, I'm thinking, what is this sound built on? And I came up with two things. The original influence for probably this type of music was like if you put a Wagner opera in 8-bit and put a beat behind it. And then, in a feedback loopy sort of way, when we make soundtracks like this now, it's like modern sort of epic rock put into an 8-bit. So I think of like Muse, which like their second album especially has, if you listen to a song like Bliss, has a big kind of, that could be easily video gamed.
I could hear that.
Yeah, or like Knights of Sidonia is another, classic example. Just like really melodic, just driving. It's great. I love it. So let's start. I'm gonna do a little meme for you. Do a little John and Dylan irritated at the guy who owned our Ocarina of Time cartridge before us. I'm gonna be Zelda. It irritates me even just seeing that.
Seeing it on there, it is just infuriating because you know it's wrong. Oh. Does this immediately remind you of the Shining Force intro?
Yeah.
I'd never thought of that before, but it totally does.
And this kind of music, I think of like some impressionistic like tone poem, like something Debussy would do. Like lots of really. None of this is gonna matter much to you.
I don't know.
I guess for the sake of this, segment, I'll just say stuff regardless of whether it'll be.
Someone out there will get it and be like, yes!
Here's the problem is that I think all of this that I say now and everything I said in the previous segment, you could easily watch and be like, that's bullcrap. Like, he's just making that up. And I promise I'm not.
There will be somebody out there who will be like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or some guy who's like...
The composer will watch it and be like, yes.
Or
be like, hell no.
Yeah, or some fool is like...
He'll just be like, no, why does it sound like Mega Man?
He's like, no, I actually think that sounds more like Mendelssohn than Wagner. I think that he was like totally off base to make that point. The intensity of this music reminds me of the first level of Star Fox a little bit. Super Nintendo, yeah. To my taste, it's a little too intense for first level.
You think so?
Yeah, I would rather have something that
inspires
just makes the word feel cool as opposed to like it's a little too overstimulating.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's kind of like I was saying the other night with how I feel a lot about like JRPG soundtracks. To fill you in on a conversation we were having the other night, John was showing me some music from Xenoblade 2. And he was showing me some of the choir stuff, which I really liked.
The stuff from the from Indaline, like the kind of church-sounding music.
And it was kind of funny. Like the next little piece of soundtrack that came up on YouTube was like a really intense, like action thing that sounded so different. This is trouble. Oh, jeez.
You can down attack on him too. If you bounce off of those, then just keep bouncing on him. There you go. There you go. Go on his head. Yeah.
Nice. What loot? It went to a really actiony, clearly like, like we're Japanese and this is an RPG kind of song. And so I was kind of chuckling at it because usually that music doesn't do it for me too much. But then once it got going, it went into like sort of like a disco beat a little bit, and the song wasn't like that fast. Like it was up tempo, but it was really comfortable. And I realized that I think a lot of what I don't like about modern JRPG soundtracks and like anime soundtracks is that there's just too much too soon. Like it's so overstimulating to the point where the song, whatever coolness the song may have, doesn't even have time to sink in because it's just so concerned with being fast and intense. And so I like a first level to have a little bit more composure to it. And then save something like this for like a level 2 or 3 or something where you're in a little bit more peril.
Because it definitely does have more of a, like, you compared it to the first level of Star Fox, but that has a bit more of a heroic sound to it as opposed to a stressful sound to it.
Yeah.
And this isn't always stressful. Like, it gets into parts that are a bit more, I don't know, more melody and less tension.
Aha. Nourishment. Something that I think makes for a really good piece of level music is if you almost feel like there could be lyrics to the song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is a really singable melody. If you're actually like listening to it, you feel like there could be words over top of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the melody goes like. Oh, that seems funny.
No.
I think it's cool that somewhere along the way, game soundtracks became like their own style.
Yeah.
Probably sort of necessarily, but it's interesting to me to think of like, you know, it's kind of, I guess, video games had like movies sort of as a precursor to be imitating, but like with guys who were writing soundtracks for old movies, they were inspired by the classical musicians. Like that's what they had. And so I'm thinking, what is that for video games? And so now movie soundtracks have kind of become their own thing, and I think likewise video game soundtracks have become their own thing. But, you know. Ooh. Wow. I'm just listening to the chord progression. Again, a song that feels like it could have lyrics. Mm-hmm. Like the melody sounds like a vocal line. That's a cool chord progression. I like that a lot. Yeah. There's some cool interval jumps, like you wouldn't expect that chord to go there, which is a really cool movement.
Yeah. Oh, I like this one.
Yeah. I think I would have wanted to hear this as the first level song. Yeah, because it sets the tone for the game a lot better. Because you have, boy, both these songs are in C sharp minor. One of the movements it does is we're talking about modes in the previous segment, and so the Pilot Wing song is in the Mixolydian mode. This song has a moment where it's in the Dorian mode. Or no, this is an A flat minor. There we go. So it does that, which has a very medieval sound. Like a lot of like folk songs from the medieval area, like folk melodies used the Dorian mode. That's Dorian mode, but then it quickly switches from that to now just being in natural minor. so it does something that the Zelda theme does, which it does. It's in a mixed mode. One line ascending will be in a certain mode, but then coming down, it'll kind of like chromatically shift, and now we're in a different mode, and it gives the music this really cinematic. It's like this could go anywhere, but it's still really hopeful, and there's something about it that just makes it sound really action-packed.
It's like it stays exciting because it doesn't really get boring.
Yeah, and usually what's going on is that the melody, if you were to play it by itself, is a pretty normal thing, but the chords under it, because like for any note in a melody, there's like a, you know, however many dozens of chord variations you could do under it. And so to kind of go from one mode of thinking, okay, we're in the Dorian mode or whatever, but now all of a sudden we're in natural minor, so we'll throw in this chord, which you would never find in like a Dorian mode, strictly kind of folk song. It gives it a nice little, just sort of like a little plot twist in the middle of the song that's really fun to play to, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so what do you know about Rhyme?
I saw a trailer for it. I really liked the art style. It sort of reminded me of like, well, I know it's a puzzle solver. It reminded me of like if Myst were Wind Waker.
Okay, makes sense.
Oh my. I find that a lot of cinematic type music usually operates using modes as opposed to just a major scale or a minor scale, because it feels a little bit more ambiguous. Well, this does remind me of Ico a little bit.
Yeah, has really strong Ico, Shadow Colossus, all that influence. Some Zelda, and I think the art definitely has some Studio Ghibli influences too.
A lot of movie music is
there we go.
Is very modal. So like, and that gives it like a vaguely Celtic kind of a feel, which somehow is kind of like made its way into the movie pathos.
Sure. If that's wrong, I don't know enough to correct you.
So like the Braveheart theme. The melody is very distinct. And it's just 3 chords. You know, it's not as if you're going. Yeah. You know, like stuff that's really points strongly in a direction, or like even that's a little bit too like firmly grounded. We know where we are. Instead, it's just kind of wispy, floating, and yeah. And so seeing those immediately as soon as the wave started and that cello came in, I was like, wow, this just, well, like I said, it's like the story that it's telling is just that this is. It's not going anywhere. It didn't start. We don't see where it started, or we don't see where it ends. We're just living in the middle of it right now. And I think that's a really cool. I don't think composers are like thinking about that when they're writing the music. They're like, I don't want to see where it ends or where it's gonna go, but they just feel it, and that's like innate in the human experience, I guess. And composers know how to communicate that. Homework for people who like this soundtrack: listen to The Swan by Camille Saint-Saëns. It's spelled like Saint Sains, I think.
And how do you say it?
Saint-Saëns.
Okay.
At least that's how I was told to say it. French speakers don't.
Like SAINT.
And then hyphen SAENS.
All right, France.
Yeah. But the Swan is one movement in the sweet Carnival of Animals. In this game, or in this type of game, where there's nothing explained, that it would be really important musically to maintain a sense of emotional ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've heard that talked about in film soundtracks, if you just... Wow. But now we get some, even just, you know.
Well, it's just heightening, it's heightening like what you should normally, like, you're kind of like, ooh, what's this? Like, and the music's going, ooh.
Yeah.
Like,
and this is one maybe style of game where like it's going to be really important where there is a melody and where there's not. So when we first saw the ocean, there was a little bit of a melody there, which I think was appropriate to kind of set the tone. But since we've been on the island, there'll just be one big kind of chord, and an occasional little thing that dips out. And
the other day we were talking about how neither you or I are super big fans of the Breath of the Wild soundtrack.
Yeah.
I think this game kind of does that, like, incidental
minimalism,
little bits of music. I think it does that, like what Breath of the Wild kind of does. I think this game does that same thing, but better with its music.
So far, I agree with that, but I've only been playing for about 5 minutes. You notice when you're playing a game or watching a movie and there's no music, but in real life, you don't notice when there's no music. And so what's cool, but it kind of feels like there should be. Like in your memories, there's something that's stirring. I think there's like an emotional quality to really experiencing something that isn't there. Can I take fall damage?
I think you can just kind of jump. Oh.
So what a really subtle but like appropriate soundtrack like this does, or like rather why it's appropriate, is because I think it's in a really, really simple way just sort of adorning how you would feel if you were really there, as opposed to trying to put an extra thought in.
Heightening your senses.
Almost to the point where you don't notice it. I don't want to move because I'm listening, but I forgot we're making a video. Wow. And now it's out of there. It's just gone.
It kind of just feels like it just weaved in. Like it didn't feel like the music started. It just... It almost feels like there was already that track kind of going on, and they just turned up one of the tracks. Which may be exactly what they did.
I feel like I noticed when I was moving toward where I was supposed to go, the music kind of woke up a little bit. To be like, yeah.
And I think they are just kind of fading in tracks.
Well, let's listen. Oh, hello. All right, let's listen. Yeah.
It brings it in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. And then just at its earliest opportunity. It's like it keeps it in the rhythm. Like it doesn't start up a new song.
And again, just revolving basically around 3 chords. The 4, the 5, and the 6. Do you know who wrote the soundtrack for this? Let me listen. Sorry. I asked prematurely. That's so satisfying every time.
You know what? Now that you pointed out the Braveheart theme...
You're hearing the Braveheart theme.
It really reminds me of that. Let me look up who did the music. I'll look up Shovel Knight too. So, credit. By David Garcia Diaz.
Okay. Good job, David. Or is it David? Because the rest of your name...
Is it David?
Is very fancy.
Mr. Diaz. Or Mr. Garcia Diaz. It's not hyphenated, so I assume it's just Mr. Diaz.
It's not always hyphenated.
Well, Mr. Good job. Dylan. Hi, welcome.
Hey.
What do you know about Super Mario Odyssey?
Well, it's not Super Mario Galaxy, which is the last one I played. Ooh. Speaking of Camille Saint-Saëns, I think that this sound of music for kind of ambiguously creepy comes from him.
Does it?
I'm pretty sure. It's the oldest, he has the oldest song I can find that sounds like this, or there's two of them. This sounds like another song from Carnival of the Animals, which is Aquarium, which you've probably heard. It's a pretty popular song, you've probably heard it in trailers or stuff. But that was like, both of these songs were like 18, probably 80 something or 70 something. And the other one is Dance Macabre, which is Dance of Death.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and that's where like xylophone sounds like skeletons dancing kind of comes from. Yeah, this is like a really subdued kind of like docile version of Dance
What's
of
the
Death.
cool, like, because its environment, it's all like, they're all hats. But they're
Yeah.
hats that appear to be kind of like these ghostly things.
Yeah.
So it's like creepy, but also cute. Like, it's not threatening.
But you're just kind of vaguely spooked.
Yeah.
It's like that really pleasant Halloween vibe.
Yeah.
You know? This is not what I would have expected.
No.
Also, are those the save bots from Mario Paint? There's just something about it that reminds me of them.
I had this moment of like, oh
Yeah.
god.
It even sounds aged a little bit. It sounds like the theme
all
song.
like compressed. Yeah.
It sounds like a theme song from like a 70s
Yeah.
like action show.
Yeah. It's not what you think ought to be here.
But it totally makes sense, and I like hearing it in this context as opposed to like I could see hearing this in some, like beach level. And that would be pretty creative beach music. It's like, oh, like instead of like usually in a Mario game you get like steel guitars
I'll take you to the beach.
and steel drums and stuff. All the steel instruments, steel guitars, steel drums. But in a forest context, there's something about it that makes it feel really fire. And
Yeah.
it makes sense in a weird way. Great melodies too.
Yeah.
I wonder how they got like in that world. I never would have thought to do music like that, but it totally works.
Yeah.
That's another intriguing thing. As someone who writes music for a living, when I like a soundtrack, or even when I don't like a soundtrack, I pretty instinctively say, "Oh, what would I do for this? Like,
Yeah.
how would I convey what's on screen?" And that's one of those times where that really stands out. Where it's like, man, if I were writing the music for that level, for several reasons, it would be really good.
Just because you wouldn't think to do that.
Like, yeah, and like that's awesome and challenging to me. That it's like, oh, you can explore with different flavors that you think would be dissonant.
Yeah.
But they might actually really enhance each other.
I think this one has good music.
It probably does.
This is the yeah. There is also a legit. This is like the beach level. There's also a water level. It's very pretty. Okay.
This is fantastic. Oh, it's going backwards. Or it's going into the thing.
Yeah.
Ah. This is so good. I love this. It's kind of like a bossa nova.
Yeah.
Like it's slow.
Yeah.
That's like what the claves would be doing.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows Latin beat styles better than me should comment.
Let me know in the comment
and tell me what. I don't know the difference between my bossa nova and my samba. I think this music is exceptionally well written because it's not everything we've heard. It's not just imitating a style. It's like really good music within that style that I would listen to.
Yeah, like you get the impression the person writing, like they're not just like they listen to some stuff and they're like, all right, I think I can do that.
Right, they're not imitating
Like
it. They clearly get it and they understand. It's so clear that. Oh, well, she. It's so clear that they understand functional harmony and how to string a melody or a chord progression in a really smart way that enhances the music.
Yeah.
Hold on, there's one part that I'm going That note there, that's a cool thing to do. I need to figure out what they're doing. Oh, it's a flat five. That's cool. I'm giddy. I love this. This is so good.
Alright. Let's see. Do I do the other water level? I don't remember how good the music is in the other water level.
Let me just play this for a minute.
I'll start both.
It does this thing, which is cool. Yeah, that's great. I love it.
Alright, let's see. This is more of like a kind of like a more of a Zelda style water, I think. If I remember.
It's interesting the things that culturally we've taken from certain elements to represent the music. So fire we tend to think of as aggressive, but fire can also be very calm and very warm. Like sitting in your home by the fire is very safe and very secure.
But then it becomes Christmas music.
Well, not necessarily, it doesn't have to. But with water, that's cool. We go with the gentle, but water is so dangerous and so you think of the power of the ocean, and you don't get that kind of water music most often. Well, that was fun. That was a fun exploration of that game.
What were your overall thoughts on the music from that one?
I loved it.
Yeah.
To reiterate something that I said before, I liked that, as is, I think, appropriate for a Mario game, they explore all kinds of musical avenues, but probably more so than any other Mario game. This one, like, not just imitates a sound, but if I didn't know better, I'd be like, man, these are like great writers.
Yeah.
In this style.
It feels like they brought in people to do the score, like, native to that musical genre.
Yeah. Even the way, so like that one, the forest one, it sounded like it was being played off of a record. Like a lot of the high end was kind of cut off. It was compressed in a certain way, like you said. And then I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this is actually true, but for that, for the beach one, the jazzy one, I'm pretty sure it was tuned to a slightly lower pitch. Like, so when we tune our instruments, we have a standard. So it's like, there's an A, but you could adjust the pitch on a really micro level before it becomes A sharp. Yeah. And so I felt like that song, as soon as it came in, my ears said, that's slightly pitched down. Slightly pitched down. and on records, especially before the digital recording age, so even in the 90s you have this happen.
Yeah.
Depending on what speed your tape reel was running,
Yeah,
it would be
if it would
be
be
attenuated slightly differently. And so it was just interesting to be zapped into this world where everything is slightly more flat.
Yeah.
It felt really good.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
I guess that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, let us know. Give it a like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. You can check out a whole lot more at NintendoWorldReport.com, including the complete charity live stream that this video was a stretch goal for. Whether we made it or not, you can go check that out. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/NWR, and join the Discord. There's a link in the description down there. If you want to find Dylan, you guys just have treesreach.com, right?
We have treesreach.com. Treesreach is one word, which for .com does not matter.
True. There's no hyphen or underscore in there.
Just Treesreach. And same with Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is where we're most active. We only have one album out right now called Some Night You Will Hear Me Crowing. And as you'll probably be able to tell from this video, the video game soundtracks is kind of what I grew up on and what gave me a love of great music in the first place. And so the album is 2 discs long and covers a very, very wide range of sounds. And there's some instrumental stuff on there that you will definitely hear Zelda and Final Fantasy influence. So if you're into that sort of thing, there's at least a small slice of the album that you'll enjoy. Yeah, for sure. So check it out.
Check it out. If you have a game that needs scoring that's actually going to come out,
I'm not your guy because I exclusively do games that don't come out.
Never come out. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.